Hey friends, my name is Jim Hinkle, and I'm speaking with my good friend and a missionary, David French, that is dearly loved. We're here in Memphis, Tennessee, at a church that loves Zambia, loves David, Lori, and his family. And David, you and I are kind of connected. I came to Memphis about the time you left Memphis. I think Memphis could only handle one of us.
Ran
But
me off. So
I did. Well,
chased me all the way to Africa.
you
So
made space for me. So we're glad to just be able to sit down this morning and talk for a few minutes about to make much about God, to talk about the kingdom and what's going on. So uh, there's a lot of different people who will be watching this video. Some won't know anything about Zambia. They won't know anything about you. Some will know a whole lot. But just kind of get everybody on the same page. Just give us the 2-minute version of who you are and how you ended up in Zambia and why we're talking here in Memphis, Tennessee today.
well, about 2003, my wife and I decided we wanted to go back to Africa full time. We did mission work in Africa in the early 80s, and I did some work in Nigeria in the 90s. And we decided we wanted to go back, and we did a survey trip in 2003 and looked at several different possibilities of where we could go. And we were invited particularly to go to Zambia to start a Bible college. And after looking at all the possibilities and where we thought there was the greatest need, we ended up deciding to go to Zambia. So we went there in 2004 and started a Bible college in Zambia.
Wow. And I just think about all that's happened over the past 16, 17 years. It's pretty phenomenal. I had the pleasure of being there with the students and with you and Lori and Karen for a week. And it was one of the richest experiences of my life just to see people being hands and feet of Jesus in such tangible ways. So I guess without walking through, the last 2 decades of ministry and development, kind of give us an idea of where the Zambian ministry is right now and kind of the different containers in which you're working to bring about kingdom ministry there.
This ministry started off just as a Bible college, but as we responded to the need, as we saw the needs more and more every year, and learning from our experience more than anything else, our ministry slowly began to evolve. And so it is actually quite a bit different from what we originally intended to do. And I think that a lot of that had to do with just trying to do what Jesus would want done in Zambia. And that's really been kind of the way, what has led us all the way through this, is just asking a question: if God was here, if Jesus was here, what would he do? And what would God have us to do with the resources that we have? What can we do? And then we would just start doing it and learn how to do it through experience, trial and error mostly.
Sometimes how not to.
Yeah, a lot of it. I'm very much of a critical thinker. I see the glass is half full, but it's empty to me. It's always empty. So my wife sees it all full, but I'm totally the opposite.
That's why you guys are such a good team.
Yeah, we're totally opposites. But, I just am always trying to fix things, make it better. And I'm always my worst critic. And from that, seeing what is not working, what we need to do different and how we can improve. So this has really been a process of learning and developing. But I believe that in the last 3-4 years, we've reached a point that this is just really feels like it's gelled, and it's like all that hard work and experience has really put together something that seems to be functioning very well and very effectively now. And frankly, even for a guy whose glass is empty, I think it's half full now. So
for the optimist,
the
optimist
I don't know.
think it's just fired on all cylinders. So talk about some of the different areas.
Parts.
Yeah, kind of the pieces.
Well, there are 3 main parts of our ministry. There's some other things we do, but 3 main parts: the Bible college, the primary school, and the children's ministry we call Karen's Kids. The Bible college, is a basically a 3-year training program. And our mission statement is that we're there to develop and train self-supporting spiritual leaders who are equipped for a holistic rural ministry. We're trying to train them so they can holistic ministry, meaning both to the body and to the spirit. So like what Jesus was doing, it said he came healing and preaching the good news. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to teach our students to do that. And but the most important part of that statement is that we want to develop spiritual leaders. If we don't do anything else right, that's the one thing we want to do right. Mm-hmm. So it's taken about 14 years to really figure out how to develop spiritual leaders in that culture. And that gets into a whole long subject of spiritual formation. Sure. We don't have time to get into, but we have developed a program that's really designed to develop spiritual leaders for the churches. They're not necessarily, well, very few of them will be full-time preachers, mm-hmm. but we want them to be self-supporting spiritual leaders in the churches. A lot of them will preach and do all of that, they just won't get paid for it. Because African churches can't afford full-time preachers. Then the other area of ministry is our primary school, and that is kind of where my wife, being a school teacher, that's kind of what she has really focused on developing, so that we have developed, in the last 2 or 3 years, we've really put some time trying to develop that ministry. And we want to provide good quality education, but also Christian education. And just in the last year, we built 5 new classrooms so that every grade now has its own classroom and its own teacher. And so we did hire 6 new teachers, replaced 2 that didn't have adequate education. So we have 12 good teachers for the grades K through 7. Mm-hmm. We have capacity for about 250 students, and they come from all around the community because there is no school in our area. But this is a top-notch quality education program we've developed. But it also has that spiritual component. Last November, one of the most spiritual-minded students that we ever had to go through our program graduated. And so we kind of snapped him up, and his wife too, because she went through our program. And we hired him to be the campus minister in the primary school. Okay. So awesome. He teaches Bible classes and does chapel and works with the families spiritual. So he's a minister to the students and their families in that school. He also helps coordinate with the Bible college to get our Bible college teachers the Bible college students and their wives to come over and teach Bible and work with the ministry too. Mm-hmm. That way our Bible students and their wives get practical experience learning how to be a school teacher, because when they go back to their villages, they can start one-room schools in their churches, because it's a big need in Zambia for education. A lot of villages don't have a school, so they can learn how to do that, but then they learn how to work with children, because half the population of Africa is under 18 years of age, and that's very important that we learn to focus on developing the spiritual lives of children. So that's kind of our primary school. We also hired an assistant director who's a really top-notch guy. He took a pay cut to come work with us. His name was Lakondo, and boy, we've been blessed. He works with Lori daily. They talk with, over the internet, communicating and running the school and really elevating the quality. He's working on a master's in education now, so he's really raised the standards and the effectiveness of our primary school. Then the third area of our ministry is the children's ministry, which we call Karen's Kids. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a ministry. My daughter Karen, who's been living there full time, she hardly ever comes back to the U.S., so she's there all the time, and this is where her passion is. She wants to save the babies. I'll mention too that Karen now has kind of become our chief administrator in Zambia, because when Lori and I are here in the U.S., she is there running things there. So she kind of handles all the operations of the ministry there. But her passion is the babies, because half the children of Zambia, or half the children of Africa, die before they're 12 years old. But when you really get down to looking at it, it's happening in the first 2 or 3 years of their life, because something happens mainly to the mother. The mother dies in childbirth or soon after, which is very common in Africa, or the mother is too malnourished. the UN report a couple of years ago said Zambia is the most malnourished country in Africa. And the reason is because they eat nothing much more than corn. 85% of their diet is corn, starch. They get very little protein. So the mothers are very malnourished, and they can't adequately nurse those children. And when that happens, those children become severely malnourished, and then here comes malaria or dysentery or something, and that's what kills them. And then another thing is a lot of the mothers, 25% of them, in fact, have HIV/AIDS. And they don't have another alternative to nursing. So if the mother has HIV, she's going to nurse that child, and there's a 25% chance she passes the virus to the child who's already malnourished, and they quickly die before they're 5 years old. So when we started realizing what's really happening with these babies, Karen just said, I want to save these babies. So as people, it's mostly individuals who give her money. She buys baby formula, and she will give a family who's caring for a child. Sometimes it's the mother, sometimes it's the grandmother because the mother's dead. Yeah. But she will give that family baby formula for up to 2 years, and that will save those babies' lives. She also helps children when they get real sick and need medicine or need an operation. That happens. Special needs children. And then we've just finished work on a baby house, we call it, a care facility, where we can take children that when a father and mother die, that child they look at family not as a nuclear family, it's extended family. So when the parents die, that child becomes the responsibility of the whole extended family. So we don't have a problem with someone taking care of the children, but sometimes a family isn't able to take in a child immediately, or can't take care of a child. They can't buy a baby formula, and what's going to happen to that child. So there's temporary need to care for children for up to 2-3 years, and so we have this new baby house that will allow us to care for some of these children temporarily, because we don't really want to do long term. I know orphanages are really popular. People will give to them, but frankly, Africans don't like them. Because they have a way to take care of orphans. They don't need orphanages.
This just kind of gets them past
so we just want to do temporary. I don't want to do for Africans what Africans can do for themselves. So let's don't make them dependent on us. Let's empower them and help where they can help. So those are our three main ministries. We have some other things, like we have an optical clinic. We have a auto-refractor machine that will read people's eyes, print out a prescription, and we can match them with donated eyeglasses. But that's real. We don't run it all the time, just when Lori is there. But that's really life-changing to people.
To be able to see.
Yeah, a lot of people have grown up and never had a pair of glasses, and they're, nearsighted. And, got a story of one guy put on glasses, and he looked around and he goes, "Oh, trees have leaves on them." And, the best story I ever heard was this older couple that came in, and they were in their 70s, and they'd never had a pair of glasses. We put these big old women's glasses out of the 70s, if you remember. Maybe you don't remember. You're so young.
I do.
But they were big old.
I've seen pictures.
Yeah, you see pictures. Well, my wife had a pair. But anyway, put up big old pink glasses, women's glasses, put them on him. His eyes bugged out. He looked around, and then he looked at his wife, and he goes, "Oh, I have married a beautiful woman," like the first time you'd ever seen her.
Man, what a
And
moment.
I thought, boy, that would be a shock at 70 years old to see your wife for the first time. Here, y'all just keep these glasses. But no, they just was life changing. But that's a fun ministry that we do.
Well,
so anyway, that's
I know you guys go so wide, and you're trying to go deep, and I'm not overly interested about numbers from just a feeling good about ourselves kind of standpoint, but just to help people understand the scale of what you're doing. Do you mind just telling me how many people are in the leadership program, and about how many are in the school? You said you had a capacity for 250. And then how many babies are under the care of Caring Kids right now?
All right. I
just
can talk about the Bible
estimates.
College. I honestly don't know what the numbers are for the primary school or Karen's Kids, because they fluctuate.
Sure.
Quite
And
a
I'm
bit.
sure with
we have capacity for 250 children in the primary school. I don't right now. It's growing and increasing every month, especially as we increase the quality and we get better known in the community. I think there's at least 150 kids in the primary school right now, but we're moving up to 250 because we just hired the new teachers this year.
Okay.
So it takes us a year or two before
Yeah.
we really build up those numbers now, because we made some big changes in the primary school this last 12, 18 months, major changes. Then Karen's kids, she does with whatever money she has, and there's kids that it goes like this,
Yeah.
the numbers.
It's kind of hard to quantify too with some of those kids,
Yeah.
because they're not necessarily there with her
Yeah.
in care, but they're
Yeah, I don't know. Every month she buys a bunch of baby formula, and then she makes this track. It takes her 2 days to go around the mall and
delivered.
yeah. And nobody's asked me that question about the number, so I've never asked Karen.
Well, I know every year or two we'll talk, and I've heard some numbers, and I know sometimes it was a dozen, but sometimes it was 30 or 40, and so I just didn't know.
She's not been having any
scale-wise.
children living with her for the last year because of the pandemic. We for a period of time, when COVID first hit, we were really afraid what was going to happen in Africa, and we locked down and shut down our campus. And so she sent the kids she had and was able quickly to try to get those back with extended family. So mostly what she's been doing for the last 12 months or so has been pretty much just with the medical help and assistance and with baby formula. But I know I get pictures every month or two of a new child that she's got, and I try to post them on our Facebook page when they come in. Now, the Bible college is where I focus most of my attention. Honestly, Karen and Lori come to me to stuff, and it's like, okay, how much is it going to cost? And I try to figure out if we got the money, and they kind of agree or not agree. But Lori knows education, and Karen knows kids, so. If we got the money, I give them the money, especially if it's donated money. But now the Bible college, I can speak a little more clearly about. We have 3 classes of students, three, first year, second year, and third year. And the first year students, and by the way, we will have 20 students to come in the first year in January. We start in January and go all the way to November. We'll have in other words, we're in operation year-round except December. But when the new students come in, we'll have 20. But within 3 months, they're down to 16, 15. We've had them drop all the way down to 12 because a lot of them come and they don't realize how hard our program is. It is hard. Our program is hard work. I mean, they got to learn how to do new agriculture, and they got to grow their crops and sell them, and some of them thought they were going to get away from the farm in the rural area, and they find out no way. And then of course going to class, and our program's hard. They are busy all day long, every day. So a lot of them drop out, and then we have some that just get sick, or their father dies and they got to go home and take care of the family, and things like that happen. And so we have an attrition through the time, but pretty much every year we're graduating 12 students plus about 7 of their wives, 7 or 8 wives that go through the women's program. The men get what's called a diploma in Bible and ministry, and the wives get a certificate of completion in women's studies. So there's two diplomas or 2 degrees they get. And then now the first year students will have 20 that come in January. We don't let them bring their wives till April because we want to flush them out. We really try to get rid of the chaff real quick. We are hard, and we tell them from the very beginning. We want to scare them off, and they disappear. I mean, we'll wake up one morning and people say, well, "Where is Henry?" We can't find him. He disappeared in the night.
Gone in the night.
Yeah, they disappear. It's funny, but the wives come. The first year students' wives come in April. And then they're assigned a married student a house, apartment. We have 30 married student apartments, and then we have a dorm for the single students. But we want 75% of our students to be married. We want them, ideal age is married and in their 30s or 40s, and they have already been engaged in ministry. They get letters of recommendation from their home congregation, and we interview them and try to vet them before we come. Now, our attrition rate has actually started going down. We're losing fewer and fewer because now our graduates are recommending students, and they're
That's
recommending,
awesome. Yeah.
and they can tell them what it's really about, and they come knowing a little bit better what we're about. When we interview them, we're trying to get them to come to our campus too, so they can actually see before they come. So
Well,
we're pretty much maxed out numbers.
yeah.
All in all, men and wives,
Mhm.
we have capacity for about 90 to 100. But I've thought about building some more student houses, but I'm really doubting that we're going to do that because, you know, I know we Americans, we want to mass produce everything, bigger is better. But I'm going to tell you what, when you're trying to develop spiritual
Yeah.
formation takes mentoring, and I don't know that we want to increase anymore because we're more concerned with quality than we are with numbers. I'd rather every year produce 12
Sure.
good quality students than 20 or 30 that really are
That are
not,
less
that we've
developed.
really not developed well spiritually.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's an important value. And I know, having spent some time in developing countries, the lack of resources toward church leadership and leadership equipping is just incredible, like compared to what we have access here in the U.S. So thanks for giving us kind of an overview. Just two questions as we kind of begin to round out the conversation. And the first is, and I don't want you to tell us all the bad things about other ministries, but so with that in mind, you know, if people who are listening to this conversation, people who meet you, who hear you, who are on a Karen's Kids newsletter, or they follow Lori and see her post something, you know, on social media, they're always asking, everybody always has to ask the question, you know, why is this worth supporting versus XYZ? Because there's so many options. And I think there's, you know, a lot of white noise just because so many people are asking for money and so many people are touting what God is doing. And I think God is doing great things in all kinds of ways in all kinds of places. But I guess if someone that's watching this or engaged in conversation with you asks the question, you know, what is so compelling about what you're doing? Why is this where I need to invest my dollars and my time and my prayers that I've got a limited amount of, but I want to steward really well? Why Zambia and why now?
Okay. I think first of all, there's a sense that over these years, I have a feeling that a lot of people feel called to certain things. Some people are passionate about children. Some are passionate about the spiritual side of the ministry. And so people, I think the first thing is for people to ask themselves, what do they feel God is wanting them to do or spend their money on? Because I think everybody's different. And so I think it's a matter of their calling.
Okay.
Now, as far as our ministry, Karen's Kids, if you want to save babies' lives, Karen's doing that. And she's doing it very cheap. You know, we have no overhead, expensive commercials on TV. Our brochures are printed on a printer. So your money is going to go to helping kids, and it's going to save their lives. Karen has saved a lot of kids' lives. So very poor kids, saving their lives. Okay. So that's the cheapest way to save a baby's life, that ministry. The primary school, if you look at the economics in the world of all the countries, you know, in their GDP, you'll find out that all of those countries at the bottom of the list are all Africans, with a few Asian countries like North Korea thrown in there. If Africa doesn't do a better job of educating their children, what hope do they have for the future? You know, and I believe the kingdom of God is about making the world better and making us better. Yeah. And I think that anytime you're investing in a child to help them to learn and to grow up and be a responsible, and of course you add the Christian component to our primary school too, but raising kids who can take care of their families and contribute to the development of their country in the future, that is very important to the future of Africa. And that's what our primary school is trying to do. We're trying to raise these kids not only their spiritual lives, but so that they can grow up and support their families and not live in dire survival level every day like they live in Zambia. So this is very important.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the spiritual side of our ministry, that there's a lot to unpack there as far as what we're doing. But the bottom line is we're trying to train spiritual leaders who understand what Christianity is really about, and they can go out and make disciples, not just churchgoers and baptize and plant a lot of churches. We're trying to train guys that can go out there and teach people how to live differently, how to live more like what Jesus would have us to do. And if you really get to understand what the problems of Africa, you really will understand that the real problem, the heart of the problem, is spiritual. The corruption that Africa has, the police taking bribes, just the way families treat each other and run over everybody, and it's like a dog-eat-dog environment. When you really get to see what's going on in Africa, it is very dark. It is very dark. And that's a spiritual problem. And the reason Africa can't develop and get out of this is because of all this darkness, this corruption, this dog eat dogs, stab everybody in the back. I mean, you can't even trust your family members in Africa. And so we really have got to teach people a new way of living, because they didn't grow up with the Judeo-Christian value system. So we're trying to teach people a whole different worldview, a whole different way of living. And so that's what we're trying to train our students, so that they can go out there and make real disciples, because that is the real hope for the future of Africa. And then looking down the road, Africans tell me, one day we're going to be sending missionaries to America, and because they hear what's going on in America and spiritually, and they're saying that more and more. And I'm really happy that they're thinking that way, because it may happen one day. I just wish they didn't say it so cocky, like one day we're going to send missionaries to America, like we want that day to come today. But we may be thankful one day that our great-great-grandchildren, that Africans start sending missionaries here. And one of the things that I don't think a lot of folks realize is that Africans are reseeding Christianity in Europe already. They're already sending missionaries. They're self-supporting, but they're missionaries, because you see the birth dirge in Europe. They're an older population. They haven't raised enough children to take care of the older population. And who's going to take care of the older population in the service jobs, and nurses and doctors? So they are heavily recruiting from Africa their medical people into Africa, and to do those service jobs. Africa doesn't like it because they call it the brain drain. They're stealing their best people into Europe. But of course they're going because they pay so much better. But what's happening is they're planting churches all over Europe, because less than 4 or 5% of Europe goes to church on Sunday. And you can go into these big cathedrals in Europe, and they're nothing but museums. I mean, beautiful churches, but there's not a church that's dead. But you can walk out of those cathedrals, go around the block to a shopping center, and you'll find a little church there that an African has started. So they're already reseeding the gospel in Christianity back into Europe. And who knows, one day they may be the ones coming here. So that is a real passion of mine, that I want to make sure that we plant Christian faith in Africa, and that it's deep and solid and doesn't just blow away down the road. So that is kind of a real passion of mine. So if you really want to help the future of Africa, and even the possibility of the kingdom of God down the road, I think Africa is the place to go, because there are now more people to go to church in Africa than go to church in all of North America and Europe combined. In fact, the best I can estimate, there's twice as many people going to church in Africa than all of North America and Europe combined. That is where Christianity has shifted there, and also some places in Southeast Asia. So,
well, thank you for all of your work, your tireless work, even though you get tired.
definitely.
And just the last thing, how can people who are connecting with this video, this interview, how can we pray for you, for Lori, Karen, your families?
I would pray for our health. Lori and I are now in our 60s, and there's no one to replace us, and so we don't intend to ever retire, and we hope the Lord gives us 5, 10, 15 years. And so I hope that we continue to have health in our staff in Zambia because, we've had staff people up and just die overnight. And I pray for their health because we've invested a lot in developing a very good staff now in Zambia. And we pray for them and their health. That's a very big important. Of course, we pray for the funding because the ministry needs the funds that we need. And then we just pray that God will bless us, that we're able to accomplish these things I've mentioned in this interview, this conversation, that we can really affect the spiritual lives of these children and our students, and that they will be able to go out and multiply in the years to come. Those are three things I would ask for prayers.
Well, I'll definitely be honoring those requests. I hope people who are joining us will also be honoring those prayer requests. And how can people find out more and get more connected with you?
Well, they can go to our webpage, www.zambiamissions, with an S on the end, zambiamissions.org.
Great.
And you can find pretty much all about information. And you can get my email there and send me an email if you have any questions.
Yeah, great newsletter that comes out. So
we also have Facebook page, but that information's on our webpage. Just go there.
Okay. Well, thank you. We'll be praying for you. Thank you for watching this, and we look forward to seeing how God continues to work through the Frenches and in Zambia.
Thanks.